Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Monster Report here on YouTube and now on podcast. This will be our second episode on podcast, so we're pleased for you to join us here. I am here with my good friend Yuri Rentfro. How you doing, Yuri?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Doing excellent, and we're here to talk a little Masters of the Universe, or Motu as it's known as. Alright, awesome. We got our Motu swag. Typically we might talk about some monster stuff, kaiju stuff, and you know what? There's monsters in Motu, so that's relative. We're both Motu fans and kaiju fans, and you've seen Yuri on my shows before, so glad to have him back on here. Before we get started, I want to make sure everyone out there knows to like and subscribe, comment on this show on YouTube. That makes everyone, see this show and promotes the show and all that, and also like the podcast. I'd also like to throw out a little shout out for the sponsor of this episode, which was Seismic Toys. They didn't pay me anything, they didn't give me anything, I just enjoy their products and I like their site, and I want to just give them a little plug here. So seismictoys.com, check out what they've got, get yourself some of their figures, they'll give you a great deal, so contact those guys over there at seismictoys.com. So with all that out of the way, we're talking the 2000X Masters of the Universe series, which aired in, they call it the 2000X series, or the Mike Young Productions series of Masters of the Universe. Before this time of 2002, when this aired on Cartoon Network's Toonami, I believe that was called, the He-Man series, we pretty much had the Filmation series back in the 80s. And then we got later on the new Adventures of He-Man, where He-Man goes to space, and it was kind of bizarre. And it's kind of a interesting animation of that show. You can find it out there if you like it. It's not bad. And then we had also the 1987 movie with Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella. But then, so there for a long time, there was not a lot of He-Man content coming out. And so, it was refreshing to see, for Motu fans, a new series coming out, and it did not last long, unfortunately. Only 2 seasons, canceled too short. The Firefly effect, I guess you could say. A lot of fans, but maybe not the ratings that it needed to have. So unfortunately it was canceled, but some of us saw it when it was on the air. I did not. I saw it, later, and was able to pick up the box set, and of course it's out there for you to watch online, streaming, whatever else. Was going to talk to Yuri about this series, about your initial reaction. Did you happen to see this when it was new on the air?
Oh, yes. The premiere night, which was either a Friday or a Saturday night. Clearly, that was... 19 years ago now.
Yeah.
It came out in 2009. Oh. And I pretty much just decided, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to watch He-Man when it premieres. Because, they did episodes 1, 2, and 3 that includes that whole first arc of the backstory of Skeletor and the return of Skeletor and stuff like that.
Yes.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. And so when it was new and on the air, you kind of felt like a kid again. We're about the same age, and you were in that probably in the 2021 kind of area there. So it's kind of like, I guess, just bringing back the childhood memories again, and seeing the fact that we've got He-Man on the air again, and you probably grew up with Filmation as well, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Before the 2002 series, there really wasn't... They didn't elaborate on much of the characters' backstories entirely. There we go. Eternia, entirely. But once this hit, we started, finding out about Skeletor and the backstory of evil-lyn, because with the Filmation series, all you really got was who Teela was. Everything else was pretty much just the action.
Exactly. Yeah, so you didn't get the backstories, the kind of like the Star Wars kind of thing, where you've got every character has their backstory, what motivates them, what brought them here, and where they're going. And that's why we love Star Wars as well, because there's such rich characters. And in the He-Man series, we had to kind of get that from our comics, but we weren't getting that from our animation series, nor were we getting it from the 87 movie, which is, standalone. I mean, it could do only so much. And so, when this series came out, it kind of dedicated itself to being somewhat adult-oriented, would you say?
Oh, definitely. Mm-hmm. It was nice to have that continuity of point A to point B, because even with like the mini comics that came with the old figures, they weren't all done by the same person. So it was just kind of, oh, here's a little bit here, here's a little bit there, and you get some details every now and then, but you never had this big definitive story of this is how it happened.
Yeah. And so that in comparison with like the Filmation series, you like you said earlier, there are story arcs. So you might see 2 or 3 episodes in a row, or here or there, that related to each other, and you might be lost if you jumped in on episode 20 or so of the 40 episodes I believe there was, and so you might be lost as to why. For instance, He-Man has that snake armor, and why is it evil-lyn is betraying, Skeletor? Things like that you might be lost at. Whereas the Filmation series, they were all pretty well standalone. You can watch any of those episodes in any order, and that's kind of nice for when we were kids, because we did watch it out of order. It was either on in the morning for me before school, or on Saturday mornings, I think. So if we didn't catch everything, we would have been really lost. But we weren't, because they stood alone very well on their own. And now, just keeping up with current events, at the end of July, we're filming this in June, at the end of July on Netflix, we get our Masters of the Universe Revelations on Netflix. And so that's exciting for us Motu fans to see it revived. And so in a sense, you kind of see that Motu has taken, everything from Filmation to where we are now, has had production hell. In films, in animation, in just about everything. Whereas, the Filmation series, I don't know how many seasons it lasted, off the top of my head, maybe you know.
No, I know there were, I have, 3 or 4 volumes, because he really didn't split them up on DVD by, season. They just kind of threw them all in there. Yeah,
I've got the new, box set, and it says there's 130 episodes, so, a pretty good amount, for a cartoon series. That's great. But New Adventures pretty well, did not, didn't really fare well with the audiences. The 87 movie technically was a flop during its time. It's become a cult classic over the course of time, which has been great to see, because I loved it growing up, of course. So yeah, and unfortunately, there were so many attempts. There's several videos out there on YouTube you can check out that talk about the production nightmares of getting a Motu live action film off the ground, and just kept never happening. And then they moved on to other things. And so, here we are looking at the produced by, I guess, Kevin Smith, Silent Bob for all you fans out there, of a Revelation series on Netflix. And Netflix has been successful in a lot of different things that they've done, bringing them back. So, it should be interesting how they take on it. And so, I guess while we're on that subject, have you seen some of the, just still shots, screenshots that they have out there of Revelations?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What's your thoughts?
Thing I've seen so far. I mean, I can't wait to see, like, a trailer or something. But the voice casting looks solid. I actually really enjoyed the designs of the characters, because if I had, like, a top 5 characters, Moss Man is one of them. And I saw the picture of the action figure for him. Mm-hmm. And Alan Oppenheimer is doing the voice of him.
Oh,
who
good.
was the original voice of Skeletor.
Yes. Yes. Great choice there that he can come back and do some voice work. It's kind of like the voice actor of Optimus Prime. His name eludes me right now, but anyways, he's done. You know who I'm talking about?
I think so. Peter Cullen, I think.
Peter Cullen. Yes. 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 The legendary voice of Optimus Prime, who's come back to do the voice of Optimus Prime and other voices as well, but his voice is so, legendary, and he's been doing this for such a long time, and you Google his name, you see how many things he's done. And Alan Oppenheimer, also great voice actor. So we've kind of compared it to the Filmation series, and I have not been a collector of the toy line, and I noticed you have a few of the 2000X toy line. So tell me what you think about the 2000X figures that are out there.
Well, we'll just compare original Mosquitor to Manny Faces here, because my original's stuck in a tote somewhere down here in the basement. I couldn't find him.
Okay.
But articulation-wise, I mean, it's still got the wonderful thing that you remember, the twist at the waist and punch.
Right.
The same articulation that the originals had. He's going to have the little spinning head, of course. But as you can tell, you look here between that one and this one here, and you notice he doesn't have the stumpy legs anymore.
Okay.
He's a little more proportionate. Even He-Man and Skeletor were done that way. They're done quite a bit more proportionate. Here's Mackinac.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things about the toy line was, if you rewind just a few months before all of this hit the shelves and hit basically our eye, Mattel released a few figures of special packaging for the 20th anniversary of Masters of the Universe, the toy line.
Okay.
And that came out really early 2002, in the end of 2001, and first of 2002. And they sold really well. And I've never known if they already had this idea in the works to make the 2002 show and the toys and stuff, or that maybe got them thinking.
Okay, and so you were, for the people listening on podcasts, he was talking about the proportion, especially of the legs, whereas the classic line, the vintage line, I should say, your legs would be disproportionately larger than the body, or than the body, would lend itself to. And he's talking about like the Manny Faces actually looks like the legs are proportionate to the physical size of the body. And these are 6-inch figures, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so they recently released a line with carded figures with the with 6-inch scale, so it fit well with the the vintage line in that sort of way. And what's cool is like Manny Faces, if you did not point out the fact that was a 2000X character, I might be fooled into thinking that was a vintage character, because they did keep a lot of the secondary characters other than He-Man and some of the others. Pretty well the same. Mackinac, Stratos, a lot of them kind of stayed the same design, same color schemes. You got a lot of differences in He-Man, Teela. I really like what they did with King Randor, and how he's not just sitting around the whole time. He's actually doing stuff. And Marlena.
And like Queen Marlena have a bigger role, and in the whole of not just Prince Adam's life, but like the overall history of Eternia, having King Randor and Queen Marlena both more prominent in that. I liked it a lot. Yeah,
a lot more depth to that character, and as you said, we're talking about some of our favorite episodes that are out there. You already alluded to that backstory of Keldor. And so in a nutshell, kind of explain that and tell me what your reaction was to seeing that played out in this series.
I thought when I first started watching the show the night that it came on, no really any spoilers. Of course, it was early 2000s. There wasn't a whole lot out there internet presence wise anyway. And being able to see Skeletor with the full face and the hair and everything, it was really cool. Because I always loved Skeletor. I mean, I don't know of anybody who really doesn't like Skeletor, so except for maybe He-Man.
Right. And so that backstory of seeing how he ended up as Skeletor, and the fact that there was a familial relationship with King Randor, He-Man, you know, the whole group there, which is, you know, it's kind of a Vader, I am your father. In this case, I guess I'm your uncle. So Uncle Skeletor. And which I always kind of thought maybe it'd been interesting if they were actually, you know, sort of like, you know, evil twin brothers in some way. Going off of that into the comic series, which gave us a little bit more about Keldor being of a different race of Eternians known as the Gar, the blue-skinned people, him being a half-breed between an Eternian and a Gar. I always found that very interesting, how they, you know, used that to bring in kind of, you know, a social message, if you will. And I actually kind of think Lion King may have stole a little of this because of the Mufasa Scar kind of thing. It's like, you know, he wanted to be king, but this one, you know, was more powerful, and the other one wanted the throne and has to throw over the brother, you know, to the wolves or the, you know, the stampede, the whatever, to gain the throne, but failed miserably, which is what we're glad about. And then we got our villain Skeletor, and then you know, to add to that depth, we also had the villain Hordak, and I'll explain a little of my reaction seeing him in there is because in the She-Ra series, when you saw Hordak, he was just kind of this bumbling villain, which I guess Skeletor was as well. So they kind of made the villains in the Filmation series, you know, very comedic, clownish, if you will, not very menacing and evil. In this one, we got a very evil Skeletor with fangs, which I really appreciated. And then we also had Hordak, which you might say, okay, I'll leave Hordak alone because he's part of the She-Ra series. You know, I wasn't really into She-Ra. This one made him, you know, a menace that was out there, kind of like, you know, the Voldemort almost, and you know, Sauron from Lord of the Rings. That he's this he's out there in some other dimension, and he could return at any time, and he was part of the history of Eternia, and I thought that was a neat kind of element. Other favorite episodes that stand out to you that really stick out in your mind?
Orko's Garden,
Uh-huh.
which had Evil Seed and one of my favorites, Moss Van, in it.
Yes.
And it was so cool to finally see Moss Van, because he wasn't in the Filmation series, not that I can remember.
You're probably right. I think he was just the toy line. Yeah.
Yeah. That his battle with Evil Seed, the yin and the yang, the good, the light, the dark, and the light. It's nice to have a little more. They've also elaborated quite a bit more on Orko and where he's from, and Trala and all that good stuff. But the one episode which I think might be my favorite is The Sweet Smell of Victory, and that is Stinktor's origins.
Call me Stinktor!
Yes. And yeah, it gave an origin story to quite a bit of those characters. You might have been surprised that they included in a series that was more adult oriented. Some of those characters were a little outlandish and strange. I think that the Mike Young crew must have had a special place in their heart for Mechanic, because I was surprised how how much he was prominently in that show, and I was like, you know, I mean, he's not that powerful. He's got a long neck, and that's about it. But they they really drew out his character, gave him a cool arc, and made him an interesting character through that. And it was cool seeing so much of like Buzz Off and Manny Faces. I would have loved to see more of Cyclone. I would have loved to see more of Zodak, because who doesn't love Zodak? I mean, such a cool character, and even his backstory. You were going to say something.
Oh my! That's actually what I was just watching before we started this video, and I had forgotten that King Hiss ate his brother. He didn't kill his brother; he ate him alive. That is dark. I mean, that's the sort of thing that you really couldn't have done back in the '80s because of the censors and stuff. That's why Skeletor and Hordak were a little more bumbling and not as evil and violent as what they could have been, was because the censors would not let them do it.
Right. Yeah, there was definitely, and even with that darkness, this wasn't a violent show in a sense. It was implied violence, but as far as blood, guts, and gore, you didn't get that with the show. It was still something you could watch with your kids, even though if it was more adult oriented, and had that the story arcs, something that had a continuing storyline throughout. Kind of the differences between like Star Trek: The Next Generation and Star Trek: Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine had pretty much a continuing story arc going through its seasons, and Next Generation you can kind of jump in and out, so that was one of the things about this series that did that, and where you might have to explain things to your kids why, like I said, and I was watching later episodes with the snake armor He-Man, and thinking that was actually pretty cool to see him having different accessories, something other than just his power sword, and just giving him a different look. And I guess maybe for the kids these days, those days, whatever, there's been another generation of kids since then, but getting away from some of the barbarian He-Man kind of look to him, and giving him the technology side of things to add to his character.
Oh yeah, that's a good way to sell toys too.
That's right. As an additional accessory, so we can make a whole new figure out of that character. That's why we have, yeah.
It's like you look at the regular just body of him, like, oh man, if I had just that regular He-Man, we could give him, spend a little bit more, do a little different armor, or as Hasbro likes to do it, repaints that nowadays. Right. But they could update the accessories or whatever, and boom, they got a new figure off of the same mold that they can make money off of.
That's right. Yeah. And reusing the molds is definitely part of the toy industry to save money, and it's understandable why they do that. In animation, interestingly, you go back to the Filmation, you obviously see the same cells being reused over and over and over and over again, whereas the fresh kind of feel to the 2000X series I loved, because you didn't have so much of that. I mean, his transformation into He-Man was obviously reused several times, and that goes back to your Filmation series, but for the most part, you had animation that was fresh every episode, and getting to see them in different locations in Eternia, not just recolored other sets, if you will, or other cells, backgrounds, and though I do miss the kind of Frank Frazetta dark style of the Filmation, this one had. It was more brightly lit. Eternia's definitely got some dark places to it, but even their dark places are well lit enough that you can have a battle there and see everything that's going on. One maybe criticism of the animation is the oceans. The oceans always have kind of a swampy yellow greenish look to them, and I guess that's not what I really like about that, but there was probably a creative reason to use that, but maybe if that was one criticism I could come up with about that. But you mentioned the fact that Orko, we got more of his story, and he still remained comedy relief, Did you like that, or do you think that they should have done something different with that?
No, I liked Orko just the way he was. He's always fun. I mean, in a story that was meant more for satisfying what we saw in our childhood, to be able to have something in there that's exactly like that, but it also appeals to my kids and the younger generation as well. It just grabs them and pulls them in as well.
And I guess it didn't fall for some of the remake syndrome that you get with Dark and Brooding. Not everything had to be Zack Snyder. Not everything had to be Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight series. He-Man can still crack a joke every once in a while. With the Masters characters, I liked that they kept some of the lightheartedness in it, because it is supposed to be, like you said, the key word there is fun. If we, wanted to see a Dark and Brooding series, we could find a Dark and Brooding series, and it still had those moments, in it, those moments of darkness where everything seems to be against them. The Snake Men, like you said, King Hiss coming out, and things are evil starting to take over again. But at the same time, you could have the banter between Adam and Teela and things like that happening. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because you talked about the background of Teela, and so the fact that we've well established the sorceress as Teela's mother, but Teela's biological father, is not entirely revealed. It's kind of left as a mystery, but there's, two obvious possibilities of who that father could be in that episode. What do you think in that story arc that they're trying to imply who is Teela's father?
Oh, it's definitely Man-at-Arms.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Because they were, when towards the end of that episode, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the episode, but the sorceress was talking to Man-at-Arms, and she says something along the lines of, to him protecting his daughter. He goes, "You mean my adopted daughter?" And then there's no answer. It's just him looking up at this mural that's carved into the wall.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it's him.
You're pretty sure, yeah, because he also got whoever the soldier was, got his memory back and went back to battle. I'm kind of leaning, and we can agree to disagree and still be friends. You know where I'm going with my theory on that one.
No.
Oh, okay. Fisto as her father.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Only because you watch the episode again, and I'm going to give a little credit to Mr. Scott Knightlick of Spectre Creative, because I believe that's who he believes it is as well. But when you watch the episode, you always have, I believe it's Fisto's right hand, which is enlarged, oversized, under the sheets when he's sick or injured, and you never get a clear view of his oversized right hand, his fist, and so and he doesn't have a memory of why it was that during the the Great Uprising, or uprising, or what was it called, the unrest, the Great Unrest, that he was, Man-at-Arms calls him a deserter. And I love the fact that, they make them brothers, Fisto and Man-at-Arms. That's kind of, cool. And seeing Teela call him uncle, which then I was like, is he really an uncle? And but there was no other foreshadowing or other things that kind of went on about that. So yeah, am I baking your bagels with that one?
No, I mean, that's really got my gears turning now. So I'm gonna have to, one, rewatch the episode. Two, was that elaborated in comics, or?
I don't believe so, but I will have to watch Mr. Knightlick's YouTube show again, because I believe he just hinted at it, but he did mention that he believed he was he was the man, the soldier that was all bandaged up. But yeah, I'll have to watch that episode again. For Motu stuff, great Motu knowledge, check out Spectre Creative guys out there on YouTube. Great content. But yeah, that's at least where I'm kind of leaning. But at the same time, it's one of those, I guess, it could be either way. It could be one of those things they left a mystery. We've always thought of Man-at-Arms as her biological father. That was, not a problem in our heads because it just worked, and he treats her like a daughter, and so I think that, and even the '87 movie, she refers to him as father, and all of these iterations always has that familial relationship there. So, anyways, yeah, that's just the way it could have gone either way with that one, but cool to see those characters come out too, seeing Fisto, seeing, Stratos, all of those characters that we, hold near and dear to our hearts, and of course even the villains, Trapjaw, a cool look to him, slightly updated, but not terribly, Merman, all of them, evil-lyn, getting slight upgrades and updates from the Filmation series, but not overdoing it, and not taking away our beloved characters, from, the classic series. So, yeah, that's, a good reason why we love this series. We think it's a masterpiece in its own way, and, ended before its time, and should have, somehow kept going, if there was a way to keep it going, a Kickstarter project or what have you. But other, thoughts you have about the 2000X series as we close this episode, other final thoughts about it and reactions that you might have?
I know collecting the toy line was absolutely a blast because, it was like rebuying your childhood, and you got these new versions of these characters, and Toys R Us was still a thing. Target carried more toys at that time. Walmart, and you didn't really have the online, scalping, reselling community that you had to fight with. You just had to fight with other collectors, and 9 times out of 10. They see one. Hey, I'm looking for that. Oh, I've got one. I'll sell it to you, and I'll sell it to you for whatever you found. For whatever its store price was. It was a different. It's like a bonding community that we probably will never have again. But man, that was fun. Castle Grayskull. Nothing was ever terribly hard to find, but there were ones that were, chase of 10, and you got 3 He-Mans and 1 Tila or something like that. Merman was the one for me that I had a hard time finding, but I finally found it, which was at an old Walmart. They've now since upgraded, but somebody had, I'm going to tell myself here. Somebody had ran into the bathroom, and I had to go to the bathroom, so I ran in there. I looked over on the bench right before I walked in, and I see Merman laying there. I'm like, oh, crap, I don't have that. So I go in, and I come back out, and it's still laying there. Yeah, I'm getting it. So I grab it real quick, and I go pay for it, and I get the heck out of there in case somebody else came back for him.
Oh, my. Either somebody was horribly disappointed, or, they didn't even notice. But if you're that guy out there, or girl, could have been a girl, who left it on the bench, right? Yeah, whoop. Here's the thief. I guess it's all, all's fair in love and war. I don't know, it's like survival of the fittest, actually,
Yes.
The victor was Yuri, so, but that's cool, and the fact that we're in so short supply with our origins that we're coming out with now, but like you said, it is cool now, the time that we're living in, reliving our childhood, seeing these figures back in the toy stores again. Sad that we don't have Toys R Us, but still cool to see these figures coming out again and getting a whole new line with the Revelations, which we're just out there saying, wait on it, and then we'll be out there voting with our wallet, burning a hole in it, and picking up all these new toys as well because we have to, right?
Exactly.
Yep. So, well, Yuri, when the Revelations comes out, definitely going to have you back on here, and we're going to get our reactions from and spoil the heck out of it because everyone should be out there seeing it when it comes out. It's not like you have to wait on it in theaters. Just get yourself a Netflix account, I guess. So we're definitely going to have you on here and talking some of that, and so I appreciate your time talking some 2000X and sharing some love for this, and I think everyone should check out the 2000X series that's out there. You can find it. I even think every episode is on YouTube. I shouldn't be saying that, but it is. But yeah, we're going to close this episode out. Well, thank you, Yuri, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's fun to be here.
All right, and we'll be back in a future episode talking some Motu and some Kaiju and all kinds of stuff here on the Monster Report. So like, comment, subscribe, check out the podcast on Apple Podcast and everywhere you can find podcasts that are out there, as many as I can put out, and give us a nice rating out there so we can get this show going, warp speed and just keep boosting our ratings out there, even on YouTube as well. So we're appreciative of you watching the show and listening to it. And wait, don't go anywhere, everyone, because this video is not over, because we just had the Masters of the Universe Revelations trailer drop as I was editing it, and I gotta tell you this, goosebumps. I mean, just amazing. I love that the Need a Hero song that was in there. I love the animation style. Everything about that is just awesome. I had actually just, not long ago got off the line with Yuri, chatting with him, and he had this to say.
Oh. Holy crap, they look awesome. Sorceress looks amazing. So does Tila. The land shark. Merman. Those aren't goosebumps. Batcat. The Bashing Beetle. Roboto looks awesome. Orko. Holy crap.
That's right. It's what we were all thinking. So, now the aftermath of this trailer dropping has been interesting. Kevin Smith's getting beat up a little bit. I find that kind of interesting. I don't know Kevin Smith, never met him, never, had communication with him or anything like that, and I guess, I don't know much about him, except for now, I guess there's been things that have been coming out about him where people have been digging up past statements he's made, or even present statements he's made, and making a big deal about it. And, okay, fair enough, public figures, like any of us, people do that. And so what I want to, I guess, maybe address about that is, the two big things about this might be that in one statement he said he had no real love for He-Man, so, and maybe at that time he didn't. I think maybe, if anything, he may have had a childhood memory, of He-Man and growing up with the cartoon series and the toys and whatever else. And, at that time in his life, I had that time in my life too, where I was not so much into Masters of the Universe. I had, a lot of great childhood memories and all that, but I just kind of pushed it off to the side, became a fan of other media, other IP that's out there, and kind of came back to it. And that's something we all probably do with a lot of IP that's out there, and I think there's no big deal about that. The other is that he misspoke, I guess you could say, about the years, and I guess if he were a real true He-Man fan, he wouldn't have got those wrong. Whatever. How many times on this show have people pointed out to me I got my facts wrong, or mispronounced something, or misspelled something? I mean, it's just, it happens. It happens to us, especially when you're trying to push content out constantly, and in this world, to be the first and, to be the one that's, trending and all of that. It's going to happen. It's going to happen a lot, and it's just, you got to forgive people a little bit on these kinds of things. So, but with that being said, I guess I don't really, have a lot to say about the Kevin Smith controversy and all that. I hope he and the other creators of this series have a good product. because we need it. We need a great series, and hopefully it will last longer than the other series, and that it will give us what we've been wanting. And I think that's been great, and maybe it will reinvigorate something in the film industry. Who knows? You know, we'd love to see this content being cranked out, and good quality content being cranked out of our beloved IP, and other products that we see out there. So with that being said, thank you for watching. Check out all the other shows on this channel. I appreciate the subscribers and the likes, the comments, all of that. It helps this channel. It pushes the algorithm so others can find this channel and continue me pushing out this content as well. And I really appreciate everyone who has subscribed and continues to watch the show and this podcast. Continue to do that, and I will catch you in the next episode. So for me, Nick Adam Poling, and Yuri Rentfro, until next time,